This is On the Sidelines with Box 13.
All right, we're back here on another episode of the On the Sidelines podcast. I'm Ethan McReynolds, here with my partner in crime, as always, DJ Dante Jackson. DJ, we got a lot to talk about today. The Mariners are just en fuego, just on fire. 8 straight series win. We're gonna dive into it. We're gonna have a visit from our friends at the Marine Layer podcast, Lyle Goldstein, T.J. Mathewson. They will be joining the show, so stay tuned for that. We also got another edition, as always, I guess, with the weekly podcast, Top 5 Dead or Alive.
Top 5 Dead or Alive.
Thanks to DJ. And we got What's Trending. We're taking you around the country in the world of sports, getting you caught up on what's going on. But let's start with the Mariners.
Of course, you have to start with the Mariners.
The Seattle Mariners are being carried by their offense.
Yes.
I mean, what is going on? DJ, what have you enjoyed most about watching this team play?
I've just enjoyed them winning in all different kinds of ways and a different player stepping up every week, or I'm sorry, every game. It's been a different hero every game. It's a total team effort, and with all the injuries they sustained in the last few weeks, you have players stepping up. I mean, I think this is what Jerry Dipoto imagined or envisioned when he put this team together a couple of years ago. He said this team can hit, and this is a good team, and they've shown him to be right so far.
Well, I mean, since April 7th, which was right after the Giants sweep, which I believe was a couple of days before you hopped back onto the bandwagon.
I'm back on, baby.
So right before
All
DJ
in.
hopped onto the bandwagon, they are 17-7, best record in the major leagues. Let's see, I had a bunch of stats. First in runs, 7th in batting average, tied first in home runs, 4th in OPS, 17th in strikeouts. So they're striking out at about a barely below league average clip in that span, best record in baseball. I mean, what else can you say? This team is just doing so many things right. And if you had told me on May 6th that the Mariners would be playing the Athletics and it would be for first place in the American League West, and the Mariners were about league average in pitching, I would have told you that you're absolutely out of your mind.
Right, but I want to reiterate the strikeouts.
Yeah.
You know, that was something that was so bothersome last year, and they still strike out, don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, they've fixed, it seems that they've improved in that area of the game and putting the ball in play, and lo and behold, the offense is clicking. So for those who think, those analytics people and all these people that say strikeouts don't matter these days, yes it does, because the Mariners are striking out less, they're hitting the ball more, and they're more successful, and this team looks great right now.
And I will say, going back about a week, they were still like 25th in strikeouts, and they were still striking out a bunch, but they were walking and they were hitting home runs, and it just felt like it didn't matter.
Raleigh.
And exactly. And you talk about different ways to win games. It feels like the last week or so they've been doing a lot more small ball type stuff.
Yes.
On Saturday, Jorge Polanco leads off the ninth with a double. Ben Williamson fighting with 2 strikes, just fists off a ground ball to the right side, moves him over to the third, and then Rowdy Tellez drives him in. I mean, that's the situational baseball that Dan Wilson came in here preaching, that they weren't really doing, despite their success, they weren't really doing a great job of, honestly, up until this point. You're starting to see a little bit more of that as we get deeper into the season.
Yes, and that's baseball. That's the baseball I grew up on. Move the runner, bunt him if you have to. Just get the runner over and get him in. And stack those runs, and that's baseball. I don't know what happened to that in the last few years. I guess analytics took over the game, and the Mariners are still hitting home runs. I mean, they still dig the long ball.
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong.
Kyle Raleigh's leading the league in home runs.
But they're also doing the small things, like you said, and that's baseball. And I love to see it. It's a great brand of baseball to watch. Like when I'm watching on TV, that's a good watch right there. Before, the Mariners couldn't hit. They're striking out all the time. You didn't want to watch them. I'm back on the bandwagon, baby. I'm all in.
Well, and
I'm all in.
You mentioned how fun it is to watch. How refreshing is it? Last night they lose to the A's in extra innings. That was not fun.
Yes.
But they go into the 8th inning. They're down a run. Last year's the last 3 years, how many times were they down 3-1 in the 7th inning? You're like, this game's over. There's just no chance. Last night they give up the lead. They were up 4-2. They give up the lead to the A's, down a run in the 8th, and you're like, they'll find a way. Like, at least you have the optimism, the hope. You're watching. Like, this team makes you watch until the very end because the offense can actually do something.
Right. It gives you hope.
Yeah.
And that's great as a fan. Like, all we asking for is a chance, And with Munoz shutting the door almost every game, and he showed he was human Monday night, but I don't put that on him. It was an unearned run. And now that Brash is back, everything seems to be like falling into place. You get Logan Gilbert and George Kirby coming back off the injured list, and this team can take it all the way. I've said it at the beginning, although I jumped off. I did say that if this team plays like they're supposed to play, they can go all the way, and I still believe that even more so today after they showed us this offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And the biggest thing, when George Kirby went down at the beginning of the year, you knew Matt Brash was going to be out until about this time in May.
Right.
Now Brash is back. Gilbert's down, but the whole thing was you just got to tread water.
Yes.
Just tread water until the pitching is back 100% because you know what they can do. The offense is showing what it can do, and it's doing more than treading water. Best record in baseball since April 7th, which is just under a month. I mean, that's crazy. So you've done more than you could have asked, you could have hoped for with this pitching staff not at 100%. Now, I mean, like you've done the hard part and you have this hot stretch. Just
Yes.
tread water to the end of the month.
Well,
you get Gilbert, you get Kirby back, and then you get this pitching staff that's 15th, 14th, 13th in the league right now in a lot of different categories.
Yes.
And then get them to start pitching to their potential.
Yes.
I mean, this team is going to be dangerous if you can marry it all together.
Now,
it is baseball, though.
Yeah, they're supposed to be top 10. I mean, and I believe those numbers will average out. The Mariners pitching staff will show up sometime this year, definitely, especially when they get back healthy. But they've established a personality, a style of play where they're never out of it. They get the timely hits, they get the timely home runs, and that is a team that can win. And that's all we're asking for is a chance. And, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on the top 5 dead or alive list, but the Mariners can go to the World Series, and I expect them to.
Yeah, absolutely. And, yeah, you talk about the late hits. I mean, wasn't that the calling card of the 2001 team that set the record for
Two
wins?
out,
Soto
so
Mojo.
what? Two out, so what?
Yep,
That was their mantra.
The Soto Mojo. I mean, it's really fun to watch. The Cardiac Kids, they make it interesting every time. I do want to shout out J.P. Crawford.
JP.
I mean, the first 2 weeks of the season, I was like you with the entire team, but it was for J.P. Crawford. I was like, we need a new shortstop. This guy is I was really down on J.P. Crawford, and
Ethan DePoto was ready to make a move.
He proved me wrong, and then some. He's got a 13-game career best hitting streak going on right now. 7 of those games are multi-hit games, and he's got multiple hits in 9 of his last 17 games. That's a 2.5 week stretch when over half the time he's got 2 or more hits.
Yes.
I mean, it's crazy.
And it's been the bottom of the order that's carried this team.
Mm-hmm.
And Dylan Moore, before he went down, he's
back today.
Playing
he's
great.
back today.
And
Just activated off the
thank
injured
goodness he's back because, we need Dylan Moore. Like, did you ever think you'd say that? No disrespect to Dylan Moore. You're a great player. But the bottom of the order is carrying this team right now. So when Julio gets hot and Randy starts to click and you get a Robles back, the sky's no limit for this team. I am up on this team. I'm all in. But one thing I said in last week's podcast, and I said it before, you can't get complacent, and you don't get a benefit of the doubt. Now, Monday night, Dan Wilson got a little bit cute with some of his moves. Dan Wilson, stay out of the way and let this team play, okay? Don't get cute. Don't be trying to manage too much. Don't be trying to tinker and outthink the room. That's not the way to go right now. This team is playing well, and that's all you got to do is wind them up and let them go, and this team will win more games than they lose.
Yeah, Dan Wilson's managerial moves have been interesting. It's something I want to talk to the Marine Layer guys about in just a little bit. But yeah, JP's been incredible. You mentioned the bottom of the lineup. JP's now at the top of the lineup, but you've got
move him up.
Well, because he's been so good at the bottom of the lineup. To your point, you've got Leo Rivas hitting over 350. He's been incredible. Ben Williamson, the rookie, has been incredible as well. You're getting contributions from all over the place, and it's without the streaky or the hot bat of Julio Rodriguez that we know that he can do. Randy Arozarena still not really hitting for much average, which it doesn't really matter that much. He's still slugging it pretty well. He's still walking, but Randy can be better. Those are two of your best bats.
Yes. Yes.
And you don't have them in your top 5 offense in baseball right now over the last month.
Yes, I mean, top 5 in baseball, who would have thunk it? The Mariners,
We're talking about the Seattle Mariners.
Yes.
in April, we're at the beginning of May. I mean, they're hitting at home in April.
And it's still
I've never seen that before.
It's still early.
It is early. Now you're the it's early.
No, but I was about to say, but they are doing this, and I think it's sustainable.
Yeah.
I think their style of play is sustainable. This is not, the cardiac kids. They're actually winning games in a sustainable way, and that's what I love about this team. You can see it, They talk about WAR and all these numbers and all that. I just have one test, and that's the eyeball test, and the Mariners look good to my eyes right now. And, yes, they dropped a few. And like I said, the manager, don't get in the way. Don't get too cute. But I want you to get greedy, Mariners. Get greedy. I don't expect you to win every game, but I expect you to win every series. And you got some games to make up against the A's right now. All right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we saw how fast a 10-game lead can evaporate last year in record time. In record time. And that's not just an expression. So for more in-depth analysis on the Mariners, let's go to the guys that are focusing on this team 24/7. That's the Marine Layer Podcast. Lyle Goldstein and T.J. Mathewson. Take a listen. All right, pleased to welcome in a pair of special guests into today's episode, the first time on the Sidelines podcast. Welcome to the Marine Layer Podcast, T.J. Mathewson, Lyle Goldstein. Thanks for joining the podcast, guys. Really appreciate it.
Ethan, thanks for having us. This place is sick.
Yeah.
Nice. You got great digs.
Yeah, the Fox Den is up and running. We've been doing this, our 11th episode so far, just doing it weekly. So, and we're talking all things Mariners today, pretty much. I mean, this team is just red hot. 8 straight series wins. They're going for 9 straight tonight against the Athletics. Hopefully, they can get the next 2 games in this series. The offense, as we all predicted, as you've said on social media a lot, you guys have both said, as we all predicted, the offense has been carrying this Mariners team.
Just like everybody cooked it up.
Yeah.
Pitching would struggle through the first month. Offense carries them, and they're one of the best teams in the American League.
If you had told me that the pitching staff was going to be, bang in the middle of the entire league, and the Mariners and Athletics would be playing for first place in the American League West on May 6th, I would have told you that you were crazy. What has sort of been let's just start with the offense. What do you guys think has been the biggest reason for this offensive turnaround, given that it's pretty much the same crew? Dan Wilson said in the offseason, we're going to run it back with this crew, and we're comfortable with the players. What do you guys think has been the biggest turnaround from last year to this year?
I think the biggest turnaround is they've just collectively raised their floor. You don't have anchors. Like last year you had anchors. You go back and you look at the offense, I'd say at like this point last year. Yeah. Who was an anchor at this point? Like you think of Polanco right now. This time last year, anchor. Mitch Garver at this time last year, anchor. Mm-hmm. J.P. Crawford at this time last year, anchor. Julio at this time last year, anchor. That's over half your lineup. Those are your regulars. Those are your middle of the order bats that are all dragging your lineup down. But no, those guys this year aren't doing that. Luke Raley's not healthy right now, unfortunately. But I think he'd be doing well if he was healthy, and that's why I'm so bummed he came out at this point. But I think just the fact that you look at the lineup, it's like no one sucks. Mm-hmm. I don't like no one sucks really.
So I think what you're saying, right? By anchor, you mean a negative anchor, not a positive anchor. You had guys
like a boat anchor, like strapped around your neck, dragging you to the bottom of the ocean. That kind of anchor.
That is spot on. I think that paired with, you're seeing a lot of the same things, right? It's not just the same roster for the most part offensively, but you're also just seeing a lot of the things that worked for the offense last year carry over, because as many problems as the offense had last year, there were some things that were good, right? They walked and they hit home runs. Mm-hmm. You're seeing that carry over, in addition to they're just putting the ball in play a little bit more. The strikeout rate through the first half of last year, it was record-setting. When you thought it couldn't get any worse from where it was in 2023, it started to set records last year.
And they put an emphasis on contact over the offseason.
Exactly. Now you're seeing that, look, they're about 9th in the league in strikeouts right now, and neither of us are big oh, we can't stand strikeouts, it kills your team, like it's end all be all. We don't really believe in that. We do believe in when strikeouts are at a record-setting pace and when you're doing it with runners on base and not driving guys in scoring position, that's where it starts to kill you. So if the Mariners are 9th in the league in strikeout rate all year, that's fine because they're putting the ball in play way more and they're putting the ball in play in very opportune times that are driving more guys in.
I think even if they were dead last in strikeouts still right now, their offense would still be one of the best in baseball because you can strike out the most in baseball if you also walk the most and you hit the most home runs, which since that Giants series they have done, except they've actually managed to scale the strikeouts back, and you've seen the direct positive of how that's affected the team. I take the Saturday game they had against the Rangers. It's tight game in the 9th inning. You had Ben Williamson up there. Jorge Polanco just doubled. Last year, you know what happens? Ben Williamson goes up there and he strikes out.
Absolutely.
There's one out, and then you don't move the runner over. Rowdy Tellez comes up and he has a single. Great. Maybe Rowdy Tellez comes up and he strikes out. And then all of a sudden you waste that opportunity. But they didn't do that. They instead, put the bat on the ball and they found an opportunity to manufacture a run. They've been able to do a whole lot of things. I think that's the biggest thing good offenses do.
Yeah, situationally they've been a lot better lately. It's interesting there. You would think that this new hitting philosophy with Dan and Edgar, we're going to have traffic on the base paths. We're going to be good at situational baseball. We're going to get runners into scoring position, and then we're going to take advantage and score them. They're runners in scoring position, 8th most in at bats in the league, with 311. That's 9.5 at bats with a runner in scoring position per game, which is pretty good. It's a lot of opportunities. They're not doing great with those. Only 25th in batting average, 20th OPS, 6th in strikeouts. So they're still striking out. It's interesting. You would think that with this offense, you mentioned the home runs. They're first in home run, up there in walks. It's a big reason why they're so good offensively. But it's like with runners in scoring position, they're still not doing, the full season sample size as great as you would imagine this offense is under this new philosophy.
It's going to have to stabilize, I would think. They're not a team that scores this many runs is not going to be last with the runners in scoring position, or even I'd say bottom 10 all year. It's going to get to the point where one of two things I think is going to happen. You guys tell me if I'm crazy or not. Either they're going to stop scoring a bunch of runs, or they're going to start hitting better with runners in scoring position. I think it's just impossible for them to do both.
Right. And it's funny, I think the hitting with runners in scoring position is even a step above where it was last year.
It absolutely is.
So, maybe it just feels like it's a step forward. I'm not saying they've been great with runners in scoring position, and especially in those first 2 weeks of the year, that was a big storyline, right? As they were not driving guys in with runners in scoring position.
What was it, 1 for 19 in that one game against the Giants or something?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a step forward from where it was a year ago, and I think that just feels like a refresher to a lot of people right now.
Well, it's I was talking to my co-host Dante earlier in the episode. It's just so refreshing. You brought up the game on Saturday, that 1-1 tie in the 9th. I think about the game last night. Even though they lost in extras, they go into that 8th inning down 1 run. How many times did a 1-run deficit last year just feel like the end of the world? It's just turn the game off. It's over. It's refreshing baseball to watch, and they're not just scoring runs. They're scoring runs at home, which I think is another crazy part. 4th in home runs at T-Mobile Park through April. In the entire league.
It's not been playing like a pitcher's park early. I was looking at this earlier. You can look at park factors and different baseball savant park factors, that is, which is how you measure how many runs are getting scored in a given ballpark. If you just look at this year, it's like, it's a pitcher's park technically, but it's not like Coors Field for pitchers, or the opposite, the antithesis of Coors Field for pitchers. The runs have been getting scored, and you know what I would guess it is? It does come back to the home run again, because it's not a park that really suppresses homers. It suppresses everything else really, really, really well. And it increases strikeouts. But when you're hitting a bunch of home runs and you're walking, it mitigates the strikeouts a little bit, and you don't have to worry about hitting a bunch of doubles or hitting a bunch of singles, because clearly they're instead just walking and hitting homers.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're play at home. The big question, I think, is this sustainable? How much of this is just, one good month? Lyle, I'll start with you. Do you think this is sustainable?
It's hard to imagine it would be. As fun as this is.
You don't think Leo Rivas is going to hit 340 the entire year?
I don't want to be the bearer of bad news and the wet blanket here, but I have a hard time imagining Leo Rivas is going to have a 500 on base percentage all year.
Oh,
I hate to be the bearer of bad news. That doesn't mean Leo Rivas can't play a role. But some of this is going to level out at some point. So when it does, you're going to need other guys to step up. For example, and when I say this, it's not to say that the offense is just going to drop off from 100 to 0. They could still have a really good offensive season. I guess what I'm getting at here is when Cal and Polanco have a month where they don't combine for 20-plus home runs and each are running out a 900 to 1,000 OPS, when that doesn't happen and they play more to their career norms, which is still very good, who else can step up? Can Julio get hot? Because you know at some point he's going to. He does every year. He starts slow, but at some point he always gets hot. Can he pick up some of the slack? Will Randy get hot at some point? Because when Randy Arozarena is hot, similar to Julio, he mirrors or kind of elevates above anybody in baseball when he is on a hot streak. He gets just red hot when he's hot. So when some of these guys start to level out a little bit, can somebody else step in and fill that role, or can everybody just kind of play to their career norms together?
I don't think this version of the roster is going to be able to sustain the offense, but think of who comes back this season. Robles, hopefully Ryan Bliss at some point, but odds are, I mean, it would be
How
like
much
the
are you
last,
counting on him?
It would be like the last couple of weeks of September.
Well, and you
so
sort of have
in his,
second base figured out.
Well,
a little bit.
I was going to say, even by then, we may
Yeah.
see Cole Young by then.
And that's what to the point right there, right? It might be Cole Young at that point that you're going to have your next second baseman in tow at that point. So I said Rayleigh, I said Cole Young, and I say Victor Robles as well. So those guys come back, and it can pick up, as the wave of the Mastrobonis and the Leo Rivas and Rylan Thomas is probably not going to be on this roster that much longer. But those guys at the bottom of the lineup, which have been a huge reason for them scoring all of these runs, the other guys are going to come in and they're going to supplement those guys and pick back. And the guys who are coming off the injured list, who we expect to be good offensively, are going to be a more guaranteed, it's a better expectation to think that they're going to pick up that offensive slack as opposed to relying on the bottom of the lineup that you look at currently. Because I'm completely honest. They score so many runs. It's great. You look at the Mariners lineup on a day-to-day basis and you're like, I just don't get how the names on this lineup consistently score runs the way they do, but they made it work.
It's crazy how they've made it through an entire month with how good they look on the stat sheet. And I'm sure you guys saw Buster Olney's tweet from about a week ago, the 82-game stretch since August 1st of last year, second in runs for, top 3 in all these statistical categories offensively. I think it's pretty crazy. One guy that I wanted to ask you about when we're talking about sustainability, and you can look at the bottom of the lineup. Okay, Leo Rivas not going to get on base 50% of the time the rest of the season. J.P. Crawford, I mean, really just a renaissance after an injury-riddled season last year where he was not at his best. Is this version of J.P. Crawford some version of it, something that we can expect going forward? Not a 13-game hitting streak or, hot streak like he's on like this, but can he be a league average offensive shortstop for this team going forward?
Yeah, definitely. Do I think J.P. Crawford is going to be the best offensive shortstop in baseball all year, which he currently is?
Wow.
That feels like a hard thing to kind of put your stamp into, especially, and that's not even a knock at J.P. Crawford. It's just the Bobby Witts of the world exist. Gunnar Henderson's starting to get hot. The game has some elite shortstops. But can J.P. Crawford get back to who he was even in 2021, 2022? Can he be 10 to 15% above league averages of that? Yeah, for sure. He might even have a little bit more than that in him. And if the Mariners get that out of J.P. Crawford, that's a huge jump from where he's been in some years past. You can even look as recently as last year where he just really struggled. And he's made some nice changes too. I won't dive into the nitty-gritty of it, but it feels like he's just not swinging as hard right now, and it's actually benefiting him.
I'm actually curious. So what are you seeing? What is JP doing differently?
Yeah, we broke this down a little bit on our Monday podcast, and TJ dove into this a bit, and I dove into it a bit, and yeah, he's not swinging as hard, which is seemingly helping him because it's kind of the age-old story when you try to swing out of your shoes, sometimes it comes back to bite you, and it feels like JP's not doing that right now. The numbers also say like his bat speed's like a little bit down for the right reasons. So it's a little bit down that he's not swinging as hard as he possibly can on every pitch or on average of every pitch. And as a result, he's hitting the ball harder, and I think he's also seeing the ball a little bit deeper in the zone and letting it travel. And as a result, he's also not striking out as much. So it's been great. A lot of the things JP does well, he's starting to find again here in early 2025.
And another thing, he's been a little bit more aggressive, but he's not let it take away from his best skill throughout his entire career, which is getting on base.
Yep.
He's got an over 400 on-base percentage right now. dude is the best. He has the best eye on the team, and he continues to show it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, speaking of swinging out of your shoes, let's talk about Julio Rodriguez. I feel like every time he's up, he's swinging out of his shoes a slider in the other batter's box. You know, we were talking about this before the podcast, but he's sort of turning into a polarizing player with the fan base right now. I don't know if that's completely warranted, but he is off to another cold start. What do you guys sort of make of Julio's start compared to years past? Is he just a slow starter, and we just have to accept that?
I think he'll just be a slow starter for his career, or at least for this portion of his career. He's going to be a slow starter. Guys change, guys figure it out. But if he's going to be a slow starter, we also know he's going to be white hot for 2 months to 6 weeks. Sometime this season, he's going to single-handedly carry this entire offense. Like, does that not feel worth it? I feel like that feels worth it because at that point he is elevated.
It's a good trade-off.
When he's done that each of the last 2 seasons, we have seen the best version of the Mariners.
Yes.
When he was that hot last year, it was down the stretch with the new regime, and people were like, oh, this team might sneak into the playoffs. End up missing it by a game. The season before, in 2023, they looked like a World Series contender. That August, when he had one of the greatest stretches in Mariners history. The Mariners set a franchise record for wins in a month. It was amazing, and we know that's going to happen this year. But you think of like the slow start. And by the way, I'm not even one who thinks he's starting that slow, because he's not like awful at the plate. He's fine. He's slightly above average right now. If he was awful, yeah, okay, different story. He's striking out at a career low rate, so that's positive. And then he's also walking at a career high rate. It's almost double what it was last year. Those are all extreme positives, I feel like. So it's so hard for me to sit here and say Julio's having a really slow start when he's been incredibly valuable.
Yeah, he has, and everything he does with the glove and with his speed is always going to boost his season WAR and his value to the team, because at the very least, even when he's not hitting, he will always do that. Now, let me say a couple things. About the slow start, TJ's right that he may just always be a slow starter, but for Mariner fans, if you want some perspective on this, you know who else was always a slow starter? Kyle Seager. Everybody loved Kyle Seager.
That's a great
always started slow in April. It was just his MO. For whatever reason, it took him a little while to get going. Julio may be the same way. Now, in terms of how polarizing he's become, I think this comes down to a couple of factors. The contract, which is a little overblown, but I'd say general fans, because general fans remember the big number when it was tweeted and when it was reported, which is $475 million. He's only getting that if he wins a significant amount of MVPs and hits all these incentives and essentially plays like the best player in baseball. Otherwise, the contract is totally warranted and reasonable and worth it. And when that's all said and done, I think I don't think fans should have many gripes about that. You want a guy who's going to be a 4 to 5 win player every year on your roster playing great defense. And if you told him he was going to make $17 to $20 million a year, you'd sign up for that every day of the week. I think where some of it comes from is how hyped up he was coming up, the standards he set for himself in his rookie season, part of it being the contract, and not everybody looks into the weeds of it the way we do, and the way he's marketed, not just by the team, but across the league. Like, he's marketed among the Bobby Witts, and among the Ellie De La Cruzes, and among the Gunnar Hendersons, and among the Aaron Judges even, when the performance just isn't quite there. It has not been bad by any stretch. In fact, it's been good. Sometimes it's been very good. It just hasn't been to the level of guys like Witt and Judge and maybe some others.
He gets graded on a curve more than any Mariner player probably since Alex Rodriguez.
Yeah,
I would say. The expectation is so enormously high. But then if I sat here and told you he's on pace for a 6-win season right now, you'd be like, oh, that's a career high. That sounds pretty good to me. 6-win season at age 24. He's going to hit 25 to 30 home runs. He's going to steal 25 bags. He's going to be at least 15 to 20% above league average as a hitter, and he might be the best defensive center fielder in baseball.
This we can stamp, right? His hot streak is coming. Now, I can't promise you when. I can't tell you if it's going to be tomorrow. I can't tell you if it's going to be in early July. I can't tell you if it'll take till mid-August. But he will get hot, and he will get scorching hot at some point in the season, and he will carry the offense for a while because he does it every year.
Yeah.
And one last thing. By the end of the season, he could be top 10 all-time in Mariners franchise history in WAR. He's 24 years old. That's the curve. That's it. I'm going to sit here and defend Julio because I think people are being a little too hard on him right now.
Yeah,
especially given everything else that's happened with this lineup. Just ease off of him.
absolutely. Yeah, I think Julio is one of the least problems on this Mariners team, if not one of the solutions. I want to bring up before you'd mentioned Cole Young. He is off to a rough start in Tacoma. What do you guys make of that? Is he going to be ready this season to contribute? I know that Jerry Dipoto is very slow with rushing prospects and stuff like that. What do you guys make of Cole Young's start?
He's had some bad luck so far. Like, I'm not going to say it's the entire reason behind the slow start, but he has had some bad luck. Early in the year, he was scorching balls, and they just were not landing. So that plays a factor into it, along with the fact that he is 21 years old and one of the youngest players in AAA. So to see him take a little bit to get acclimated to some pitchers that he's seeing that have plenty of big league time, for example, and it's the highest level of pitching he's ever seen, it's not that shocking. I don't think Cole Young's going to hit 180 all year down in AAA. I think at some point he's going to click, just like he did last year. Last year he got off to a slow start in AA, and then if you look at his numbers from May and on, they were really good. So I will be interested to see what he looks like for the rest of May, into the rest of June, and then you start looking around the All-Star break and you say to yourself, maybe that's his window for when we could see him, because I do think we'll see him this year.
And it's the best thing about this Mariners offense hitting so well. They don't have to force him up
Absolutely.
at all.
That's a great
if
point.
he's not hitting well, I don't want to see him in the big leagues. If they continue to score runs at this pace in their top 10 offense, no way. I'll take Leo Rivas, I'll take Miles Mastrobuoni at the big league level. Let Cole Young develop. Like we've seen what happens when they do this. We've seen what happens when the pressure gets cooked up for a prospect, and they're like, all right, we got to rely on you. It's like, no.
Just say 2 words, Jared Kelenic.
I was just going to say, what was 2 seasons in a row where they were relying on him on left field, and he was not a proven commodity.
Not just relying on him in 2021. I mean, the whole 2021 thing could be a podcast in itself for how they handled Jared Kelenic, but to keep it short here, he played 6 games down in AAA when the season was delayed a month. He was clearly the best option to be out in left field. Well, him or Taylor Trammell, but he should have been on the roster because, there's a couple ways to juggle this. He was one of the most talented guys in the organization, and they didn't want to rush his development, but you also could argue he was one of the best players in the org, and if you're trying to field a competitive roster, he should have been there. But the Mariners said, okay, we don't want to rush his development, so we're going to put him down in the minors. Well, and then that felt like a little bit of eyewash, because what happened is he basically sat and played against really bad pitching down in Arizona for a month. They let him play 6 games in Tacoma, and then it's like, all right, our offense sucks. We need you to save it. Come on up. And that didn't work.
And they hit him leadoff, and it was like, congratulations, the offense is yours, and he wilted like a plant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cole Young's not that type of prospect. He's not Kelenic-esque where he's supposed to carry an offense, but same still applies. Do not rush a prospect that you have immense value in and are relying on long term just because you feel like you need it right now. Let Cole Young hit, and when he's ready, call him up.
I want to switch gears. Obviously, the offense has carried this team, but the pitching staff, I feel like, is also a storyline. Sort of underperforming, I know, with the injuries to Kirby and Gilbert, but some of the mainstays, Bryce Miller specifically, a little bit concerning for me. I'll ask you guys about him, but this rotation's interesting. I know with the injuries, but last year they did 2 things exceptionally well. They pitched the most innings out of any rotation in baseball. They didn't want guys that struck guys out. They're not really doing any of those things particularly well right now. Emerson Hancock and Logan Evans obviously filling in. What do you make of this starting rotation right now? And do you think they can sort of tread water until they get the reinforcements of Kirby and Gilbert back?
This is what regression looks like. Yeah. You come into this season after your team has a historic season where they only use 7 rotation arms all season. I think Jonathan Diaz threw twice.
Might have been
once.
One time. So you essentially made it through the entire last year with 6 starters. Almost all of them are setting career highs in something, in innings and health and reliability and stuff. All of this across the board. I mean, you blow everyone out of the water when it comes to starting rotation productivity. It is impossible to keep that going year to year. Just impossible. Now they're seeing it, and they're seeing it in a bunch of different ways. You can see it with the injuries. You can see it with Logan and Kirby getting hurt. You can see it with Bryce, who He came off a career high in innings last year. There's a couple questions you can ask. How is the innings load from last year weighing him down a little bit, or is he just not able to find the same groove? Because it's hard for guys year to year. That's why only the best of the best are the best every single year, because they know how to dial it in. The only one who looks the same is Brian Wu. But Brian Wu had the luxury of missing the first part of last year because he was hurt.
Right.
And then the first part of his season when he got to the big leagues, he was slow played a little bit because he was still dealing with injuries, and they didn't even really let him go until the final 2 months of the season. So yeah, it's okay now that he can stretch it out a little bit. And then you focus on those guys. Like, those guys are who are going to win you a World Series or not at this moment. And because you're not getting production enough from them, like, this is why you needed your offense to be good, because you knew the starting rotation just couldn't repeat that.
Yeah, I mean, I think TJ says it pretty well. Now, the bright side of this is Kirby is very close to coming back.
Right.
It seems like they dodged a bullet with Logan Gilbert. I don't want to totally jinx it, but from how it seems, from all the scare of the original injury, it seems like they've dodged a bullet with him. We'll see how it all progresses. But you get those guys back by the end of the month, and then all of a sudden, that looks a lot different. Now, Bryce Miller is a different story, and he's going to have to figure some things out as the year goes on, because for whatever reason, the walks are way up. He doesn't seem to have his out pitches, which is very, very uncharacteristic for him. A guy who, just a year ago, was top 10 in the league in walks per nine. He didn't walk anybody. Now, all of a sudden, he's lost a lot of command. So Bryce Miller's a little bit of a different story in itself, but you get Logan Gilbert back, you get George Kirby back, you have Brian Wu throwing the way he's throwing. There is much, much room for improvement right now, and again, the glass half full of this is we may see it here in the next few weeks when you start to get guys back. And on the note of Emerson Hancock and Logan Evans, those guys have done a really good job so far. And in plenty of rotations, they're starting every fifth day. But when you have on paper the best rotation in baseball, it's hard to find spots. Emerson Hancock, since that first start of the year, and then he went down and he came back up, he's looked great.
Yep.
He's looked like he doesn't strike the amount of guys out that the other five do, but he has turned in good start after good start and won him a few games. So it's been really good.
Emerson's been great since he came. Just keep the game competitive. It's the non-competitive starts that kill you. Logan Evans' second start didn't go very well, but hoping he can bounce back.
And let me just note on that, because we talked about it plenty on our podcast. He got very unlucky in that start. So there was a lot of BABIP bad luck. There was a couple of errors.
Gotcha.
There was a world he gets out of that third inning scoreless. Instead, he gives up 6 runs. Yeah. So I think in a lot of games, that start actually goes a little different.
Interesting. So. Yeah, that's a really good point. Now onto the bullpen. Also not really striking guys out at a high clip at all. You get Matt Brash back, which is great. He's going to have to be sort of ramped up here. Gregory Santos is sent down to AAA. Now he's got knee surgery. You can't rely on him at all. So, you've got Munoz, you've got Brash, and then it's a sort of a bunch of question marks, right? What do you make about this bullpen, just overall? The state of the bullpen, which you're going to need to rely on down the stretch into the playoffs if you're going to get that far.
Thank goodness for Gabe Spire and Andres Munoz.
Absolutely.
That's what I'll say. Because speaking of regression across the board at the back half of the bullpen, the most shocking thing ever is that they can't strike anyone out. I don't get it. There's really good stuff in that bullpen. You look at it preseason, like especially when Brash comes back, you're like, all right, it's going to be Munoz, it's going to be Spire, hopefully, who we were anticipating bouncing back because he wasn't totally healthy last season, and he's looked unbelievable this year. And then you have Santos, and you have Brash. You're like, all right, these guys are going to be like among the best in the league at striking guys out. I believe they're still last. Yeah. It is shocking.
You can throw Troy Taylor into that mix who hasn't stayed in the big leagues so far, unfortunately.
Edward Bizardo K'd 30% of batters last year. And you look at it's like the most underrated 30% strikeout rate of all time. And you look, it's like, oh, actually, yeah, maybe he does deserve to be in this bullpen next year. And man, outside of Munoz and Spire right now, you've just not gotten what you wanted. I mean, there have been bad performances like Trent Thornton. There have been guys who have been like fine, like Bizardo's been fine, Snyder's been fine. You had this expectation for Gregory Santos that he's going to be like your 7th inning guy, and he goes, 8 appearances without striking a guy out, and now he's going to miss months with knee surgery. Yeah. That's not something you can expect. And now we're going to be a year and a half into Gregory Santos' Mariners career, and he's going to have how many appearances? 10?
It's between 10 and 15.
Yeah, it's not very many. I don't think this is how they anticipated this going down when they traded for him.
Speaking of trade, you could talk about this with a few positions on the team, but bullpen specifically, they are going to have to go out and get at least one bullpen arm at the deadline, if not a couple. And one of them's got to be a leverage guy because you just need a little bit more. Even with Matt Brash back, which was so awesome, both of us were so fired up to see him back on the mound, as was every Mariner fan for good reason. You still need another. You don't know exactly what you're going to get from Brash all year. Even if he gets back to being the Matt Brash that he was before he got injured, he's still going to be on a little bit of a workload limit this year, and they're going to ease him back in. It's why he hasn't thrown the last 2 days because they got to be careful. So with even him and Spire and Munoz, you still need one or two more. So I think that's going to be an area they circle at the deadline for something to target.
Well, and I feel like a sort of another half glass full outlook here is there's always arms available on the reliever market, right?
Sure.
So and Jerry Dipoto has a very good track record of identifying those guys. So while maybe you don't have the arms right now, there's a lot of unreliability there. You've got a hot offense, and you've got a situation where at the trade deadline you can get some reinforcements realistically to beef them up. It's crazy. I think I wrote down 26th in strikeouts for this bullpen. It makes 0 sense. Carlos Vargas is another one of those solid guys.
Flying under the radar.
Absolutely.
I mean, his performance last night, I feel kind of bad for him because he gave up the runs after he turned around and he looked at center field and he was about to flex with a strikeout and the ump didn't ring him up, and that was funny. But besides that, he's been great. You look at the roster preseason, it's like, what is this dude doing on the roster? Because he's bad in Tacoma. The entire time he's been in Tacoma, he's been terrible. But he comes up and he's been a very productive big leaguer this year. So you got to feel happy for him.
Yeah, it went from it feels like they're trying to get anything possible out of the Gino Suarez trade and give him a shot before Brash, Taylor at the time got back, and he was just kind of holding a roster spot for the time being. It went from that to now they rely on him, and he's looked great, totally flown under the radar. But the fact he's looked this good, it gives him another, it doesn't have to be a high leverage role, but mid leverage role for a guy with good stuff. It's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it was good to see Trent Thornton last night get out of some trouble there, have a clean outing. I want to ask you guys, Dan Wilson, being in that manager role, we've seen two sides of the coin. It seems like whatever offensive philosophy he's brought in, if the players are listening to that stuff or not, if they're just doing their own thing, it's whatever's going on is working. Decision-wise, his bullpen moves, his game management, there's been a lot of questions there. Specifically, last night he had to face the noise a little bit with intentionally walking, Blade and Soderstrom to get to Jacob Wilson, who's hitting 450 when he came up or whatever. What do you guys make of what are your thoughts on Dan Wilson's job so far as Mariners manager?
I think we've got a decent understanding so far of what his strengths are and what his weaknesses are. At least from what we can tell, it seems like the messaging he implies is resonating with players, which is really good. One thing we know with Scott Service at the end, the message was not hitting.
Right.
Those guys were, Ryan Davis just said how many times that it was not fun because of how tense everything was, and it was just everyone was not having a good time at the end of that. So it feels like sort of that pressure has been relieved off. There has been a lot of questionable decision making for Dan Wilson. Most of it's come with the bullpen. He's thrown Trent Thornton probably too much at this point.
Yeah.
You could take the situation last night. They needed to throw him because the game was going long. I get it, but still, in general, the decision making has not been a strength of his, but it does seem like the messaging of what he's trying to imply on his guys has really been landing.
Yeah. And despite that, it's crazy that if the season ended today, he's probably the manager of the year.
Which is crazy. Results matter so much. We can nitpick all we want.
Right.
But if you win games, nobody cares who you're going to in your bullpen. Because clearly it's working.
Yeah.
You can't argue that.
Lyle, is this something that going forward into a pennant race, going into hopefully October with Dan Wilson, I mean, hopefully he learns the longer that he's manager, but is this something that you worry about with his game management decisions?
I mean, this is where you get a little bit nervous, right? People aren't losing their minds over losing games in April. Well, some people are, but most people
there are people that
Some people.
Most people are not looking at an April loss and saying end all be all.
Right.
I think where the triggers come in for some people is what happens when you get in crunch time down into August, September, potentially the postseason. Is Dan Wilson going to push similar buttons that have often kind of led to some poor results early on in the year? You hope he learns by then. You hope he figures it out a little bit more by then. And hopefully he has more guys healthy and just more leverage arms by the point of the end of the year. where he's got more arms to deploy. But yeah, I think that's where that comes from. And again, I do want to highlight, he's very clearly got his players bought in, and he's very clearly, his message is resonating in that clubhouse, and guys seem more upbeat, and guys seem like they're having fun playing. That is so important. TJ just talked about it. That wasn't happening last year. And I think that bled over into some results, and results that ended up in losses. Like you saw that 10-game lead last year basically collapse in record time. Dan Wilson right now, clearly has his guys in a mindset and in a good headspace where they're winning baseball games. But yeah, as much as the Yordan Alvarez decision got criticized in that playoff game by Scott Servais, there actually was logic behind it. What you worry is what happens when you get into the playoffs, and are you going to see a similar result or results to that again if some of the bullpen decisions don't change? Because there have been a few that have left some people scratching their heads.
You're just trying. I think people just want the process. They want to figure out, okay, why is this decision being made? And if you can't find a legit answer for that, that's where people have a problem. I will say Dan Wilson's been a major league manager now for 2 months.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
He's got some time to learn, right? But then again, the expectation is different for him because the Mariners didn't interview anyone else. They just hired him and felt like he could do the job.
Yeah, it's interesting. Be interesting to see how he evolves as a manager as time goes on. It's a really good point. He's only been a manager for a couple of months now. That's all the time we have for this segment. Really quick, the Marine Layer podcast. What do you guys have planned? I know you had a couple of really successful ventures out at the Queen Anne Beer Hall, getting people involved. Where can people find your stuff? When's the podcast coming out?
So we're podcasts out Monday, Wednesday, Friday every single week. Our next live show tentatively is going to be at Queen Anne Beer Hall on the 24th. Right. So that'll be fun. Time to be determined there. Find everything for us on marinelayerpod.com, and we're all over social media. It's hard to miss us.
Yeah, we are. Whether it's merch you want to get, which we've got rolled out, and it's really, really cool to see that people have been wearing it around. So we're fired up about that. Yeah, all our stuff's over at our website. We'll have live shows once a month throughout the year. We're hoping to get down to the new location, Occidental Hall, when that opens, which we're fired up about during weekend game days and stuff, where there'll be a really live scene. So yeah, live shows are happening once a month all year. We've got merch out. We got podcasts 3 times a week, and we're posting on social media every single day.
Go check them out, the Marine Layer podcast. Hop on the bandwagon. They're doing a lot of fun stuff. Queen Anne Beer Hall, super awesome guys. More podcasts out every week, amazing content. We really appreciate it. Lyle Goldstein, T.J. Mathewson, go check them out. Marine Layer Pod on all the socials. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Thanks, Ethan.
This has been great. Thanks, Ethan.
All right, back here with D-Jack for one of our favorite segments coming into the podcast, Top 5 Dead or Alive.
Yeah.
D-Jack, what do you got?
Top 5 dead or alive. Now, everybody knows, it's early. The Mariners looking great right now. They're in first place in the division. But I wanted to talk about top 5 dead or alive sports franchises who have never won a championship. All right? I'm going to start with my honorable mention. Detroit Lions and the Phoenix Suns. Now, the Phoenix Suns, I believe, have been in the NBA since 1968. They've made 3 final appearances, but they've never won a title. Detroit Lions speak for themselves. I mean, they never went there. The futility is infamous right now. But they have a great team right now, and hopefully they can maybe get to the championship after the Seahawks, of course. All right? But we're going to start with number 5, Ethan. You've been waiting all week for this. All right, here we go. Number 5, the Buffalo Bills. All right? I had to put them on the list because they lost 4 straight Super Bowls now. And that's a feat in itself to make it to 4 Super Bowls. But they lost all 4. Now, they did win 2 AFL championships, but they haven't won a championship in the Super Bowl era. So all these teams, we're talking about the modern era, the Super Bowl era, okay? All right, now we're going to move on to number 4. And this was surprising to me, Ethan, because the Arizona Cardinals, who would have thunk it? They are one of the oldest sports franchises, in America. They've been in existence since 1898. Wow. They joined the league in 1920, and they haven't won a Super Bowl yet.
Wow.
And you know what? I'm here for it. I love it. I love it, because they're division rivals and kick rocks, Arizona Cardinals. He's just sorry. You sorry. 1898, 1920 and you didn't want
That's
to
embarrassing.
chip? Oh, come
That's
on,
embarrassing.
man. All
Yeah,
right.
like we can talk, but
Hey,
sorry, keep
but,
going.
but I'm gonna keep on going. But number 3, it has a Seattle connection. So if you add up these years, we have over a century of no championships.
Oh, my
But let
God.
me go to number 3, the Milwaukee Brewers. Now they came to existence as the Seattle Pilots in 1969. They stayed here 1 year and moved to Milwaukee. They made a World Series against the St. Louis Cardinals and lost in Game 7. So they have been there, but they didn't win one. The curse of the Emerald City continues. You did not get a chip, Milwaukee. Kick rocks, all right? We don't want you here. We got the Mariners now, all right? Let's go on to number 2, the L.A. Clippers. Now, it was a saying, Ethan, Clippers gonna clip, Just when you thought they had a good team, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, they got the wall going on, Seattle native Steve Ballmer out there yelling, looking crazy. No chips, 0 finals appearances. They've been in existence since 1970. That's 54 seasons without a chip, Ethan. I mean, 5-4. Who number is that? Is that Urlacher? Is that Bobby Wagner?
Oh, yeah,
54.
Urlacher. Yeah, there you go.
54 seasons without a championship. All right, now, this is number 1. You don't want to be on the top of this list. You just don't. But guess what? This might be our year. But number 1, I have to be honest, is the Seattle Mariners. All right? They came to exist. They established in 1977. And they even set a Major League Baseball record with 116 wins in the 2001 season. But they have never won a chip. And that's not even what's it. They have never even made an appearance, Ethan. That's why they are number 1 on my list. They haven't even been there,
Only
So
team in Major League Baseball.
This might be our year right here. And guess what? I know baseball is superstitious. They don't like to talk about things, they tie their shoes the same way. But I'm the guy who likes to speak it into existence. The Mariners, I'm going to call it right now, here on the sideline. You heard it here first. Mariners will go to a World Series this year. Now, will they win it? They better. All right, so I'm just saying, right now, they never made an appearance. This year's the year. What do you think about the list, Ethan?
I love the list. You have to have the Mariners up at number 1, the only MLB franchise to never make a World Series, let alone win it.
I just want to get there.
Yeah.
I just want to see what it's like.
One team you left off the list.
Who is that?
The Oklahoma City Thunder. They've never won a championship
Okay.
either. The curse of the Seattle Supersonics lives on.
Right.
But they're looking pretty pretty good this year.
You know what?
So we'll see.
They lost on Monday night against the Denver Nuggets.
They did.
But, they don't have enough history there as the Oklahoma City.
I know.
Thunder
I'm
to
making
make the list.
another Seattle
But,
connection for you.
You're going to keep on jabbing?
Another-
I'm here for it. Just like with the Cardinals, I'm here for it. Just jab them,
The Bills is crazy. So the 4 straight going to 4 straight Super Bowls, not winning a single one is absolutely crazy. And then you think about the current era right now. If some guy named Patrick Mahomes doesn't exist, the Bills probably win 3 chips. And they've dominated that AFC.
Yes.
They just haven't been able to get past the Chiefs.
So you think Josh Allen will bring that chip to
He's
Buffalo?
supposed to beat Patrick Mahomes. I think someday he'll win a Super Bowl. I mean, because Josh Allen is a very good quarterback in his own right, and it just sucks he's in the same conference as Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
I mean, you remember what was that 2 years ago that overtime or the back and forth overtime thriller
they
against
changed the
the
rules
Chiefs.
because of that.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. I mean, if the rules were different when that game was played, do the Bills have a better chance? And it's not just up to a coin flip. The Bills have had some awful luck.
Yes.
Not just making it the 4 straight Super Bowls, but also this era having Josh Allen during the same era as Patrick Mahomes. I mean,
Michael
that's pretty
Jordan,
brutal.
Charles Barkley, Patrick
Exactly.
Ewing. Michael Jordan stopped all of those Hall of Famers from
Exactly.
getting chips also. Karl Malone, John Stockton. So it happens when you have a transcendent player like a Mahomes, like a Michael Jordan. So, but I just want to say, Mariners, you need to get off of this list this year. Top 5, dead or alive, sports franchises to never win a championship, and Mariners are number 1. But we will get off of this list after this season is done.
There you go. I like it.
Guaranteed.
I like it. All right, let's go to some what's trending
All right.
around the country.
Man, I wrote this down. I have to
do we
look
got?
at this. What's trending is Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
Must-see TV.
Yep.
Now, her star power is staying power, right? She's not going anywhere. If you thought last year was a fluke or a novelty, no. She packed the arena, what is it, Carver Hawkeye Arena, in the preseason against the Brazilian national team. Almost 15,000 fans, and almost every one of them had a 22 jersey or shirt on. So, I mean, she's packing arenas. The WNBA has changed its schedule to accommodate moving to bigger arenas. Caitlin Clark, she hits the deep three. She got the pinpoint passing. This is a transcendent player we're seeing right before our very own eyes. Caitlin Clark in the WNBA. She's here to stay. Let's go, Caitlin Clark. What do you think about Caitlin Clark?
Yeah, man. I mean, just, you mentioned it. Superstar. I mean, she's doing stuff that has not been done on the women's game. She's doing stuff that, maybe only Steph Curry has done on the men's side.
Right.
I mean, she's must-watch TV, and you see it with the viewership numbers. Like, those numbers don't lie.
Yes.
People are obsessed with seeing her play. She's must-watch TV.
Yes, and as an aside, the Brazilian national team, shame on you. They were getting Caitlin Clark's autograph after the game.
You wouldn't get Caitlin Clark's autograph?
Not if I'm a competitor, not if I'm on the other side. I'm trying to beat Caitlin Clark. I'm not trying to get her autograph.
In a preseason game?
Preseason, off-season, postseason. If we are versus, I'm going at you. I'm not trying to get your autograph. No, maybe if I see you later on at the bar or at dinner, yes, but during the game, in the game setting, no, that's unacceptable. I don't care what kind of game it is. Brazilian national team, shame on you.
I got no problem with it. I think if you were playing in the Olympics and it was Team USA versus
Right.
Team Brazil, and that is a competitive environment. A preseason game where Caitlin Clark's back in her own arena. I mean, like, it's sort of like a PR thing anyway, a little bit.
Yes.
It's sort of a showcase. I got no problem. Brazilian national team, you protect your peace. You go get your autograph.
No, we don't do that over here.
All right. What else you got, Dante?
That's all I got.
We're not talking. You don't want to talk NIL at all?
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry.
I want to get into it a little bit.
All right. So what's trending is NIL and the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now, according to the NCAA, over 4,300 male athletes have entered the transfer portal this year. Some college coaches are seething at the fact that the players have this free movement. It's kind of like free agency in college, and they're mad because they happen to replace these players and field a new team every year. Now, Nick Saban, retired Alabama coach Nick Saban, visits the White House, and he talks to President Donald Trump. And now all of a sudden, there's murmurs out of the White House talking about signing an executive order to change the NIL deal that these kids have fought so hard for. Now, Nick Saban, let me give you some little straightening. Now, you have generational wealth, living in a mansion with Miss Terry, yes, all right? You sitting on the desk here at game day, making all the money in the world, and it was on the backs of these student athletes. And now you want to run to the White House and change that deal that they fought so hard for? Why? And you're retired. Go chill out, man. Go spend your money, Nick Saban. What are you doing? You earned generational wealth off of these kids back. And now you want to change that deal after they finally getting their money, Ethan? Mm-hmm. It burns me up, Ethan. It should have been Dante's Inferno.
Well, yeah. So I didn't realize you didn't want to talk about it on this episode.
No, but hey, look, we can talk about it.
It brings up an interesting conversation. I mean, obviously, I think politicians the White House should stay out of it.
Yes.
Obviously. I think there's an easy, NIL, it's the Wild West of NIL, and it's sort of flipped on its head from the schools and the coaches having all the power to now the players have all the power. There needs to be some in between, I think. I think there just a couple of regulations, and I think it works for everybody. One, the players can only transfer one time or twice, or some sort of regulation there so
Some
that
cap on the transfer.
yeah, you can't have players playing for 5 teams in 5 years.
Yes,
Like
I agree.
Nick Calmise, who played for UW and Wazoo, now he's off to Wake Forest. Like it just doesn't make sense.
Yes.
2, you got to have some sort of contractual agreement with it. If you're throwing around money like this in the 6-7 figures, you got to have some sort of something written in paper. You got to have both sides being held to the agreement.
Yes.
And make it a 2-year contract. Like if you want to pay if these players are going to get paid, treat them like professional athletes.
Yes.
This is not amateur sports anymore. These guys are being paid. Let's call it what it is. These guys are it's just a different league.
Yes, they
it's a stepping
semi-pro.
yeah, exactly.
Let's call it semi-pro.
So give them a 2-year NIL contract. They gotta play it out, and then they can go wherever they want. Or the player can negotiate a 1-year contract, whatever it is. But there has to be some sort of, it guarantees the player will get paid. We've seen instances where players have entered the transfer portal because they haven't gotten paid, and then you got to make sure that they're committing. They get this money. They got to give something back in return. You got to play for 1, 2 years, whatever
Yes.
it is.
Yes.
Whatever. I also saw something interesting. A loan system. This mid-major coach, I forget from what school, but he was proposing like, hey, like I'll take your player for 2 years and I'll give him back to you as a junior or senior, and he'll be a superstar or whatever.
Yeah.
Basically, what the portal is doing. Player doesn't get playing time at a Kentucky or a Blue Blood or
Yes.
a Duke. Transfers to a mid-major to go play. Plays really well, and then he transfers back to a big Power 5 school, makes a bunch of money. There can be a contractual agreement where, hey, we're like in soccer, they loan players out for 12, 18,
Yes.
24 months, and then they come back, but they're still under the umbrella of the parent club.
Yes.
They come back with all this playing time and experience, and then they can actually play instead of just sitting on the bench and then you lose them. I feel like it would be a win-win for the teams, the mid-majors. The mid-majors could be competitive, and for the players as well.
There you go. Ethan solved it all right
we
here
fixed it.
on the
We fixed it.
sideline.
There you go,
Just
White
now,
House.
Right?
There you go,
Now,
White House.
But what burns me down about it is the NCAA for years have made billions of dollars, billions of dollars under the guise of amateurism. Well, we all know these aren't amateur athletes. You ask them to practice all the time. They play. They're making all this money for the schools, for the NCAA. They say, well, a scholarship is enough. No, it never was enough. So finally, you get the players getting their just due, and you want to change it just like that. And right now, I just think you wouldn't pay a player money that you don't have.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who's talking about, well, they're making too much and it's not, the system won't sustain it. Well, you wouldn't offer $2 million if you wasn't making $4 million. So it makes no sense. The market is what it is. So I definitely like the NIL right now. I like the freedom of movement. We've seen coaches, leave in a heartbeat. UW can attest to that.
Yep.
When they lost DeBoer. The coaches can get up and leave when they want to without any recourse or repercussions. So why not the players? Now, I do think it, like you said, it should be some kind of cap on the number of transfers and how long you stay at a place, because I don't like seeing the mercenary effect of the players. Every year you're going somewhere else. It's like a hired gun type situation, especially when I'm sitting down and trying to watch a team that I like, and I don't recognize any of the players anymore because they all went into the portal. However, the portal is keeping these coaches accountable. These coaches are making millions of dollars also. So it's up to you to placate your players and make sure you appease them and work for them. So I like the NIL right now. It kind of morphed into pay for play. That's something that they need to talk about and maybe regulate. But leave NIL alone, Nick Saban, and go ahead and retire to the pasture, all right? Go ahead and chill out in your mansion and all your cars and everything else that you've gotten off the backs of these athletes, and stop it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think, there needs to be some sort of regulation, because with the coaches, like the coach still has to have the power and the ability to coach you,
Yes.
to help grow the player, to develop the player. The player, if you get benched because you're not doing what the coach needs, you're not hustling, you're not doing basic fundamental things that the coach needs you to do, and then they can just transfer. You can just run away from the grind of trying to earn your spot. And so I feel like we need that back in college athletics. We need
accountability.
The accountability,
Yes.
a little bit. And
Yes.
so I think the Wild West of NIL sort of takes that away a little bit.
But those players hardly, if ever, are successful. You know, if you didn't do what you were supposed to do at one college and you transfer to the next, usually those are the nomads. Those are the players that end up at 3 or 4 places, and that's their life. And that's the point right there. These are young adults, and this is their life. And if they want to move and go to another college, then so be it. Now, I personally think it should be. I like your idea of the 2-year cap or the 2-year contract if you go to a place, and I like to cap the transfer, the number of transfers that you can do. However, right now, it's the early stages of NIL, and it'll work itself out.
Yeah. Well, you know, we can talk about that. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about this some more on the podcast with some guests. Maybe
Saban, leave him alone.
Yeah. That's going to do it for this edition of On the Sidelines. Thank you so much to the Marine Layer Podcast for hopping on.
Yes,
we really
thank you.
appreciate it. Be sure to we're available on all the streaming platforms. So and then you can follow me and D-Jack on social media at D-Jack the Photog,
Yes.
at Ethan MCTV. Go and find us. Let us know what you're thinking about the podcast. And keep listening. We appreciate you guys
Yes.
a lot.
And download
So,
the Fox Local app.
download the Fox Local app as well. Absolutely. So for the Marine Layer Podcast, for D-Jack, I'm Ethan McReynolds. We'll see you next time on the Sidelines.
Let's go!
On the Sidelines is available wherever you get your podcast.